Thank you so much, everyone, for joining our latest Hedera virtual meetup. This is the June edition, and I'm incredibly honored to be joined by Steve, the CISO at Colorado State University, as well as a variety of their team from Attica, student interns working on some really cool verifiable voting applications. So Steve, would you like to start off by introducing yourself?
Sure. My name's Steve Lovas. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer. I've been at CSU for about 22 years, I guess now, working in central IT, although in a highly distributed IT shop. So it's always an adventure and a challenge. And the internship is a fairly new addition, and we're pleased to have them working with us. And I'm very grateful to be here and be watching them present this cool new application they've been rolling out.
That's awesome. It's been wonderful working with the team as well, and I've learned a lot, and it's been a great process so far. Derek, Maddy, Whalen, would you like to maybe go one by one and introduce yourselves? Maybe give us a little context about your background.
Sure.
Start with Whalen.
Yeah, thanks for having us. My name's Whalen. I'm a master's student studying computer science here at CSU. I have a background in mathematics and philosophy, and I love innovative new technologies. So it's a pleasure to be building on this network.
Maddy, how about you go next?
So I'm Maddy. I'm a senior studying applied computing technology, and I'm really passionate about computer science education. And with that, I want to become a computer science teacher and eventually get more girls involved in computer science, since there's not very many of us.
That is definitely a really important thing to do. We're really happy to have you on the Attica team and on our live stream today. Derek, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm Derek. I'm a senior studying computational mathematics at Colorado State University. I'm the team lead for the interns, and I've worked on distributed ledger solutions for a couple of years now, mainly on blockchain solutions, but primarily been working with Hedera, their consensus service, and other different types of solutions for about the past year.
That's awesome. Well, I'm super excited to have all of you here today. I know we have a really awesome demo of Attica and your voting solutions that we've been working on for the past couple of months now, which is super, super exciting. But before we dive into that, Steve, would you like to give us a little bit of background on your internship program and how all of this kind of came to be?
Sure. We've been at this for about 2 years. So a little over 2 years ago, a couple of pieces of opportunity met some preparation in the back pocket and just happened to create something pretty awesome. The Colorado Department of Transportation suffered a ransomware attack, February-ish, 2018. And it took months to clean up. It was ugly. It was a bit of a PR black eye for Colorado. And the legislators really wanted to do something visible to show that they were supportive of improving the state of security for Colorado and its citizens. So they looked around and discovered that they had a bill sitting on their desks already that had been waiting for funding for a year or two. And so they jumped on that, they funded it, and money was distributed to various higher ed institutions around the state. I happen to also have something sitting on my desk in the form of a proposal for an internship program in cybersecurity. I've been wanting to do that for a long time, and so suddenly there was a magical pot of money falling out of the sky, and I got to do it in no time at all. And as it happened, the bill that was sitting around happened to mention distributed ledger technologies as one of the ways to improve the security of state systems. And at first, we were focused mostly on just launching an internship program, getting it up and running, figuring out what it was going to do. So we had teams looking at web security and vulnerability and threat management and outreach and awareness and end user security. And it took another year or so before we finally found the opportunity and some interested students to actually tackle the distributed ledger project, along with some classes that had already been started at CSU. So it was a good opportunity to link those classes with an opportunity to have some paid opportunity to start working on this stuff. So Derek and Whalen, and more recently Maddy joining the team, have done great stuff, and I'm eager to see where it goes.
That is really insightful. You know, I have some experience with kind of getting university programs off the ground as well. Getting that funding is incredibly difficult sometimes, but when the seas kind of part and those doors do open, it's really awesome to see what can happen and what can be put together. And throughout my experience of working in the blockchain and distributed ledger industries, Colorado has always been at the forefront, moving forward, the regulatory environment, you know, having people on the ground who really understand these technologies and the ways that they can improve public infrastructure and private business. Specifically, you know, I've spoken at ETH Denver, which is a wonderful event, and there's a bunch of blockchain companies in and around the Denver area that are, you know, wonderful. So it's awesome to see not only the private side of Colorado's blockchain industry thriving, but also the public education side really adopting and kind of embracing some of these new technologies that, like you said, are definitely going to have the ability to improve some of that public infrastructure. So that's awesome to hear. Whalen, are you interested in providing a little bit of context about the Attica Project and, you know, some of your goals or inspirations for trying to tackle voting as a big challenge here?
Yeah, totally. I'd be happy to. So I joined the internship last fall of 2019, where I met with Derek. We were kind of two oddballs having a little bit of background in distributed ledgers. Mine came more on hardware. I had built some mining hardware in the past and had been very interested in the growth of previous chain-coded distributed ledgers. After kind of joining the team, our assignment was kind of to do some like research and innovation upon distributed networks. So it's kind of like a lot of it's like go find it, you know, do it, which was really exciting. And so the first thing we did was we chain coded our own blockchains to really kind of get our feet wet and understand the technology. Like I'm sure everybody here knows, or a lot of people know, that there's a lot of people kind of like snake oil in the distributed ledger land. So we really had to be confident in what we knew. And then I was studying mathematics and philosophy at the time. And so I was in a philosophy of law course, and we were talking about voting security. And it made it really clear to me like how much it is needed to be improved upon. And so a little bit of inspiration from that, we decided to build a voting security application. And this was pre-Hedera. So we were writing a smart contract in Solidity where we were planning to deploy it onto the Ethereum network. And then we decided to call it Attica. We thought way too hard about this, but Attica is the region of Greece where democracy originated from. So we thought that was pretty cool. Then come October, we go to the Blockchain Summit and we see your presentation on Hedera, and we're pretty impressed. We were excited to see a distributed ledger that wasn't chain coded, because we had noticed some problems regarding longevity of chain coding and how oftentimes in chain coded distributed ledgers, every single transaction increases the amount of data put on the blockchain. And that makes transactions take longer because more and more data gets put on top of them, and makes the sustainability and longevity a little bit more difficult of a problem to solve. So we saw your presentation on Hedera and we were really impressed. And after that conference, we decided we wanted to deploy our smart contract onto Hedera because this was like right before you guys released the Hedera consensus service. And then we reached out to you and we're like, hey, really cool stuff. And you mentioned the Hedera consensus service. And we looked into it and we're pretty thrilled because it allowed us to write our application in JavaScript, which is far less restrictive than Solidity. Solidity can be very restrictive. And it also laid the framework for our transactions costs to be really, really low with a really high speed of finality, which are things that are always good. And then we kind of along the way had some help from some other team members. I want to give some credit to Tanner May, Kavanch Sabunis, and Ty Bailey. They helped a little bit in the earlier stages with our web development before we started working with amazing Maddy here. And now we're here, and this is what we've done so far.
That is awesome. I'm all the more glad that I got to speak at the Global Blockchain Summit just outside of Boulder or Denver, kind of in the middle there, and got to meet you. And I'm glad you liked the presentation. It's awesome that you were looking at building Solidity smart contracts. And at the time, Hedera obviously supported those smart contracts, but you were one of those that got us right at the perfect time when the Hedera consensus service was being released. Which is awesome because you can program it in Java, JavaScript, just about any language out there. And especially for something built at a public university as part of an internship program, you have students coming and going every couple of years. Having a whole program where you'd have to onboard new Solidity developers every year is kind of its own challenge, where you'd have to kind of stand up education offerings and all those sorts of things just to support what's a pretty great demo. Maddy, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you came to the internship program?
Yeah, so I joined the internship program last summer and I joined with an education focus, but with school and everything, I had to take a break during the school semester. But when I came back, I got the chance to start working with these guys because of the background I had in web development.
That's awesome. Everyone needs web developers out there, and it's really cool to see that these distributed ledger applications also need those skill sets as well. And you were able to come in and contribute, important code to the project, even without having a blockchain background. So that's awesome. Derek, how did you come about the internship program yourself?
Yeah, so I've been around since the internship was founded. I was initially brought on to the threat team, where we looked at handling vulnerability scanning and how we can better the processes that were already existing. And from there, about the same time that Whalen was being brought on, one of our supervisors, Kelly, came up to me and asked if I wanted to potentially lead a distributed ledger team. And we've had multiple conversations about various crypto things, whether from trading to smart contracts and everything in between. But she knew I had an interest in it, so we decided to form the team and bring on Whalen to continue working on it.
That is quite a great origin story. And for anyone who's interested in learning more about the origins of Attica, where did my presentation go? Here we go. For anyone who's interested in learning more about the origins of Attica, Whalen has written this really great blog post. It might have been contributed to by other people, so please shout them out, Whalen, if you need to. But you can go read it at hedera.com/about Attica, and it shows how they found the perfect name for their project, as well as all of these other great insights about how this project came to be. Whalen, do you want to mention or shout out anything specifically in this blog while we're here and plugging it for you?
Yeah, totally. I think the main person to give credit to is Derek. Derek's always doing a great job behind the scenes. He's the right-hand man. Do a little bit more PR for the stuff. but Derek's really been a pleasure to work with, and we kind of edited little pieces back and forth in writing this.
That's awesome. Well, I would highly recommend, after this live stream, anyone who wants to learn more about their project to go read this. Feel free to reach out to Whalen and Maddy and Derek on our Discord, and you can interact with them. And I should have mentioned at the beginning, if at any point you have questions for the Attica team, or about internships at Colorado State University, all of those exciting things, please put them in the YouTube chat and we will try to answer them as we go. But today, just to kind of segue, we are going to actually be doing a live voting on the favorite projects from the Hedera community on the Hedera Global Hackathon that just finished. So we're going to talk more about this in a second, but I'm very excited that we finally wrapped up the Hedera20 Hackathon. As you can see, we had over 800 competitors and hackers registered from over 72 different countries. And with 45 projects submitted, we saw a breadth of talented projects like Attica, not that they participated in the hackathon, but building on Hedera, that were really tremendously exciting, and really happy to be able to use this hackathon to administer an election where attendees who registered on meetup.com will be able to vote on their favorite projects from this hackathon. If you actually weren't able to see it, last week we hosted the Hedera20 closing ceremonies, where myself, Zenobia, and Lehman announced the grand prize winners who took home over $35,000 worth of prizes. So after this live stream, if you want to see who actually won the grand prizes of our hackathon, I would highly recommend you go watch this other live stream that we did last week. And so with that, I'm going to go back over here. And I would love if Derek is going to introduce us to Attica here for a little bit and talk about the live voting that we're going to be doing today.
Absolutely, love to. So like Cooper said, we're going to be doing just a small demonstration of what we've built so far. We haven't done very much large scale testing, so it's kind of a stress test for us, but we're fairly confident that it's going to work. So
it's always great
crossed.
to test on live streams, Derek.
You
nothing has ever gone wrong when you do that.
I'm going with the punches, and I think I'm going to kill it. So, so is it all right if I just screen share here?
Yeah, absolutely. You should be able to take it over.
Okay.
And I might interrupt you as you're demoing just to ask you some random questions or questions that people ask in the live stream. And Maddy, Steven, Whalen, feel free to jump in as we go here.
Sounds good. So yeah, we've developed a pretty simple, straightforward JavaScript website. And what we're doing basically is, and actually, let me back up. Everybody can visit this link. It's just atticavoting.com. I believe we can have some links posted in the chat, but those of you that registered for the meetup here on meetup.com should have received an email either today or yesterday with a voting ID attached to it. We did notice a slight little error in the formatting that meetup.com was using. So if you're not able to submit any votes, what you have to do is, I'm not going to go into it too much, but you have to pretty much make it one single string instead of two different lines.
That is my bad, and meetup.com is bad, where if you ended the line with a long string of text, it'll break it into two lines for you. So right. How dare they add extra characters?
So once you have that, though, in one single string, you can go to the website. We've put descriptions for all the top 10 projects during the hackathon in there. It's you just hit the See Candidate button, and it'll pop up a small description. There's a link to their project on the hackathon website, but unfortunately, we haven't been able to figure out how to get a link in there properly. So you could go to the website through Hedera's links, and you should be able to find the projects through there. But once you figure out what your favorite project is. Say we pick humankind here. What you're going to do is put in the voting ID. It says enter username, but it's still the voting ID field. Oops, that is not the right screen, but we are okay.
At least you didn't have your API keys up. That would have been bad, Derek.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Knocking on wood, everything is going all right. And then you put, it's just your full name. So whatever name is attached to your meetup.com account, for instance, that would be the name you use here. Or if you received it through an external source, you can also use just your full name. And once you're ready to submit, you go ahead and click the submit button. And what it's doing is it's sending a message to Hedera's consensus service. It's actually going to our server first to get additionally encrypted, hashed, and we do that for a few different reasons that I'll go into later, mainly for transparency. Obviously, we're dealing with a sensitive topic here of being votes. And we noticed if you can see who everybody is voting for during an election, we typically have some sort of bias in how we would vote. So if we knew everybody is voting for this one candidate or this one project, it's likely that you're gonna, if you didn't know anything about the material or about the election, you're more than likely to vote for the person everybody else is voting for. So what we do is we use a commit and reveal structure to, we encrypt the votes with a singular key, and we make sure that the private key is held offline, so there's no way of any network sources attacking and gaining access to the key. But once the election's over, we're able to unencrypt all the votes and reveal the proper tally to the network. And the whole point of it is really to put the power into the people that are actually casting the votes and make sure that they can trust what the election or how the election is being facilitated, rather than just trusting it because they say it's secure. And I hate to say it, but it looks like my confirmation page isn't working.
Cooper, do you want to introduce some of the projects?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to talk through a lot of these individually. So up first, we have 3IEIO, which actually took home 3rd place in our grand prize, which was pretty exciting. That is an example of the bias that Derek was just talking about. I probably shouldn't have indicated that they already won prizes. But what they do is it is a HR tool that uses decentralized identities to allow you to actually build up a reputation from your coworkers and colleagues that you can take with you to future job engagements. So if someone really enjoys working with you, they can use the 3IEIO platform to give you kudos and commend you for all of the great things that you've done. And you can actually take that portably, your employer, and no one could take it away from you, which is incredibly exciting. Just going through a few more of these on the top list here. EasyFlex is you can actually click on these links and go view their pitches and all those fun things. But EasyFlex is a really cool way to keep track of all of the power that you're using at your home in a completely verifiable way. Hashgraph World, I'm just talking through the first lines. I'm not picking any favorites here. Please vote on your own research. But it is a drag and drop solution where you can connect Hedera's consensus service to things like Apache Kafka and other types of tools to kind of bridge Hedera into more centralized ecosystems and environments. So another really, really cool project. And as Derek mentioned, I reached out to everyone who is registered on meetup.com. I should have sent you that unique identification code that you'll be using throughout this live stream to vote on your favorite project. We would encourage you to, while you're listening to us provide some context on Attica and all the things that they're building, to go click through these projects, actually go to their project page, kind of look at what they submitted to the hackathon, and do a little bit of research while we're doing this live. It actually looks like we have a variety of questions going on in the chat, so I should ask some of these now. Maddy, this was a question for you. did you have a learning curve in building on Hedera, and you're part of this integration being a web developer? And if so, what was that learning process really like for you?
So I came in and I've never heard of Hedera before. And so that was definitely just getting used to the code, because I came in when it was about halfway through. And so just getting used to what they already had built and like what I could do in order to help. And it definitely was a learning process along the way, trying to learn everything that they had already done so far.
That's awesome. Have you had any prior experience diving halfway into an application before, or was this really one of your first times doing that and catching up and joining a team of people working on a real live project?
It definitely was my first time diving in about halfway through.
That's awesome. What was kind of the biggest thing that you learned from that experience, or things that you might take to your other jobs about just picking up something on the fly and kind of rolling with all the other code that people were working on?
I think definitely just taking the time to, like, before you even start working with it, try to understand what they're doing and like go through and just like I need to make sure I know what's going on first before I even try to start implementing anything on my own.
That is really great practical insights. Throughout my time, I studied computer science in college, and I really wish I had an internship opportunity like this where I could dive into, you start a lot of projects, you start a lot of things that you never really look at again, but diving into something that people have already been working on is a different experience altogether. So congratulations on all your hard work and all the learning that you've accomplished.
Thank you.
Whalen, we have another question. We have a little bit of a backlog of questions in the YouTube that I'm going to go through now, but please feel free to keep asking them if you're watching this live. Whalen, would you go into a little more detail on why you chose to build in JavaScript? Maybe compare and contrast it to the Solidity that you initially started programming in, or some of the other SDKs that are supported with Hedera?
Sure, yeah. So JavaScript, it was partially a bias of where our skills lied. So we were pretty familiar with JavaScript. We wrote our previous chain-coded application in JavaScript. And so we had a lot of experience and felt very confident building in JavaScript. And that contrasting Solidity, so I think the best way to answer this is, like, there are new languages in computer science that come about, and a lot of them have some like valuable things to offer. We're looking into Rust, for example. However, the benefit of using larger established coding languages is that they have really expansive libraries and a really expansive community of people that have been building with those languages throughout the past. So being able to utilize existing libraries in addition to have resources to a large community of people that have experienced similar problems that you have had while building in JavaScript gave us a huge advantage.
That is super important. Having a robust framework of, web frameworks, cryptography libraries, well-documented problems, and other issues that are known to be encountered when building in specific languages, especially focused on cybersecurity, is really important. Rust is an exciting language, but I'm sure that there are some issues with building with Rust web frameworks and Rust cryptography libraries that are only going to come to light after years of hardcore, testing and usage. So really
that's actually something that we looked into at the very beginning of when we were looking at consensus service, or using the consensus service, was actually looking at building it in Rust. And we had no experience with Rust. We've got a good breadth or a good diversity of programming languages under our belt, but Rust, like you said, it's pretty new. It's kind of out there, and they still are working on implementing some basic features like asynchronous functions, which just recently got added. So it made it a little bit hard to start developing on it, but it would be definitely something that we would love to look into eventually.
Oh yeah, anyone who has tried to write asynchronous Rust knows what you're talking about and the struggles with doing so. It is not something to be taken lightly. So that's really awesome. So Derek, I don't know if you would mind going back and sharing your screen again, and we can walk through a little bit of this, the rest of your platform. And I know that we want to talk about why we actually sent people these unique identification codes. In this case, I think we just wanted it to be easy, and we wanted to reach out to the people who had registered for our meetup. But would one of you like to talk to maybe the authentication system that you're using here and how it differs from what you would use if you actually implemented this at Colorado State?
Yeah,
Derek or Whalen?
sorry about that. I would be happy to talk about it. So currently, like you said, we're just using these voter ID codes that were just randomly generated, and we were able to send them out mainly as a proof of concept of what we could do in a casual community vote type of setting like this. For the original implementation of this project, we were looking at applying this to the student council elections here at CSU. And it's still something we're very much so aiming for. One of the main things that we're looking at implementing is integrating with Shibboleth and their identity access management software or platform. Something that we've briefly touched, but we understand it's a lot more complicated. And it's something we're really looking into seriously, is understanding even further beyond student elections, what is the best and most secure and still easy to use type of verification for users.
That's awesome. So it sounds like Attica is really kind of a flexible tool in the way that you've built it, where if we want to do just something short and sweet, actually the winning project in this election will all be sent Hedera swag, so they'll receive t-shirts and some fun stuff like that. But it sounds like with Attica, we can actually just implement, something short, really easy, like a UID code that may not be the most secure thing in the world, but it is a verifiable election. And if you wanted to, you could integrate with something like Shibboleth, which I'm familiar with as a previous college student, which is actually how you authenticate your kind of single sign-in across all of campus technologies, where it's attached to your student email and all of those other things, which is super interesting, where you have the flexibility there. And if you wanted to, you could integrate with something like a statewide or a national voter ID, which has a very kind of similar model as a unique identification code. So someone actually asked in the chat, is Attica something that you guys have just a pet project? Do you intend to develop it for real world usage? I don't know if you'd like to answer that one, Whalen.
Yeah, totally. It maybe started out we were just figuring out what we were doing, but coming to where we are now, we're really excited to implement it slowly and carefully, because voting security, of course, needs to be taken very seriously. And like with identity authentication, going to take it seriously as well. And I think one of the biggest challenges ahead of us is like building trust in our systems by public and being engaged in community. We very much aim to increase national voting security. However, before we get there, we have to prove ourselves in a variety of smaller communities like CSU's student-run elections. We're in discussion with some other opportunities I'm not going to talk about now, secret until they're all confirmed. But really exciting opportunities to engage with different sorts of communities and demonstrate how our application can bring more security to the table.
That's awesome.
I guess short answer, we're going all the way.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you're taking a very practical, pragmatic approach where you need to solve things at kind of a local community level. You need to test it out. You need to verify the system. You need to make sure that it's bringing more value to people than the previous systems were before trying to take on some grander, loftier ambitions. So that is always great, and something that, to your earlier comment, there's a lot of people trying to sell snake oil in the blockchain and distributed ledger space. So we really appreciate, the practical teams that are out there and building real world things.
One one other thing I might just add is voting jurisdiction, for those maybe not as familiar with that sort of policy, is a state-by-state process. So it's not something that we can like implement federally. We have to go to first, of course, the state of Colorado because it's local to us, and then go from there, you know.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Derek, I know we were showing you voting, and it seems like people's votes have been cast. I actually see people in the YouTube chat mentioning that they were successfully able to vote, which is really great. Do you want to show, I think we have a picture of what the confirmation page is supposed to look like, or at least this is an example from your Colorado State University implementation.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And it's pretty much the exact same framework that we're using with the hackathon website. It's just different coloring to fit CSU standards for their websites and et cetera.
And that's where Maddy's web development experience comes into play.
Oh, 100%. Oh, Whalen and I, we have a lot of skills under our belt, I would say, but web development is not one of them. And having Maddy's help and Tanner and Kavanch's, all of their help has been so much progress, and I couldn't thank them enough.
That's great. Well, do you want to break down what we're actually seeing on this confirmation page, maybe the pieces of this, and what we're going to do with these messages to actually allow people to verify their votes?
Yeah, absolutely. So we could see that it's a table of various information. First one being the topic ID. So for those that are aware of the consensus service, we build these topics, and the ID is pretty much the way that you can get to the topic from any Explorer or any type of query, I would say. The next is the sequence ID. So the actual message or what place your message is in the topic. The running hash is the running hash of the transaction that was processed when submitting the vote. One thing, if this confirmation page was loading properly for everybody, if you were to go to those Kabuto and Dragonglass links on the bottom here, they should take you to their either the topic or the actual message in the topic. And you should be able to compare all of this information with the information inside of there. That includes the message, the running hash. Although the running hash, we've noticed in many of the explorers, they represent it as a hexadecimal, and we're just representing it as a decimal. So we're still trying to figure out the kinks with making sure all the information matches perfectly. But
I think that those are standards on our end. We need to get better at communicating to all of the various network explorers that are out there. That one's not on you. Someone did ask if they can know the topic ID that we're actually using for this election right now, so they can see all of the votes flowing into Kabuto or Dragonglass in real time.
Absolutely. Want me to post it in the meeting chat right now?
Yeah, that would be great. And then we can post a link to it on Kabuto, where anyone in the world can go and see, just like other blockchains, all the transactions that are going on in that blockchain. And you'll be able to see where your actual message was logged into there. And we will be able to, in the future, and hopefully at the end of this live stream, allow people to decrypt their votes and make sure that they were actually counted in that election, which is super cool. Unlike a traditional election right now, I actually have no idea if when I vote for local council, presidents, etc., if that actually ends up making its way into the tally that happens. And so that's probably one of my favorite things about tools or projects like this, where I would be able to know and prove if this was the actual information that it should be. Right now, I just kind of blindly trust people. Do you want to chime in here?
Yeah, so Cooper, I just happen to have something on my desk. Today was the primary election in Colorado, and Colorado is one of the states where everyone automatically is mailed a ballot and can either return it by mail or can take it to a polling place. So unlike some of the struggles around the country, we've been doing this for years and it works great. And I think it helps represent some of the difficulties that electronic voting projects go through. And one of them, you're right, is is tracking what you did. And so I'm going to show what I pulled off my envelope. I can use this even with a cute little QR code to track that my actual ballot went into the system, was counted, and so I can verify. And until we can get an electronic version that will do this, we're not going to be happy with it.
That is just another example of how impressed I am by how forward-thinking Colorado is. You would not see anything like that in Arizona, where I live, or in any other of these cities that are, Arizona has vote by mail, but some people and politicians and states are very, very opposed to even the idea of voting by mail, let alone voting digitally. So that's really cool. And it's awesome that it's a coincidence that today was the election. So that's really cool.
One thing I think is a little bit relevant here is Colorado's doing great. I'm super proud to be a Colorado citizen here. And I think we're really innovative and forward thinking with our legislation. But a lot of states use what are called direct electronic recording machines. And there's a lot of security vulnerabilities with these direct electronic recording machines, and they're highly scrutinized. I think it's publicly known that you can obtain full administrative access on these electronic voting machines in under 2 minutes with no special tools, and they are left unattended weeks before elections, just sitting at voting locations. And what's really unfortunate is there's no way to audit them. A lot of important security audits in voting require there to be some sort of paper trail, with a hybrid of maybe a voting machine of sorts, so that you can take these paper votes and audit them against what the turnout was by the machine and do these security audits. But with direct electronic recording machines, you can't even do that. So if something goes wrong, there's no way to know.
Yeah, I was at the last DEF CON event where they had a whole voting village is what they called it. And most states voting machines were represented in there, and we got to go in there, a coworker of mine, we got to go in there during the press time, and all those machines were broken open, and there was probably not a single one in there that wasn't exploited in some different way. And it's just truly shocking.
That is fascinating. As cybersecurity researchers, interns, students, I'm sure you are much more privy to the wealth of challenges with getting something like that off the ground. I did just want to share this for anyone who's following along. Hopefully you can see this. This is Kabuto, one of the network explorers for Hedera, at the specific topic, which I linked in the chat, that we're actually using right now. You can see that there's actually only been 7 votes submitted so far. So if you registered for this on meetup.com, I highly encourage you to go into your email, go into your chats on meetup.com, where I sent you that unique identification code, and go to atticavoting.com. The link is also in the chat, where you can vote on your favorite project from the Hedera20 Hackathon. But I would just like to show you what these actually look like on a network explorer like Hedera. So you can see the running hash for message 7, the 7th vote that was cast, like Derek talked about. We know that it's the 7th vote, so we can quickly and easily see how active the participation is in our elections in real time. You know the time that it was submitted. If they wanted to, they could actually build a kind of other model of this, where you could prove the keys or the account ownership that submitted these transactions as well. You can see that this is an Attica account here that is submitting these transactions. And then you can see the encrypted contents of that message, all like Derek talked about before. And there are a bunch. There's probably 5 or 6 different network explorers running on Hedera Hashgraph at the moment. And you can compare this data across all of them and make sure that it's consistent, that everyone is counting the same votes, and that your vote actually got submitted. So again, if you registered for this on meetup.com, please go to your email, go to your Meetup application, grab that ID code, enter your username from Meetup, and vote on your favorite project. It is going to be really helpful for testing out this app that Attica has built and determining who actually gets sent some Hedera t-shirts and stickers and all that fun swag that they might want. So just wanted to show off what this actually looks like on a live Network Explorer as people are voting in real time, which is one of the kind of aha moments that I had with blockchains and public DLTs, is that it's a publicly available distributed database or distributed ledger where you can actually verify all the transactions in it, which is the most unique thing about it, which is super cool.
I think one of my favorite parts about DLT and the whole industry is figuring out how we can bridge the gap between the people that are making the software and all the different infrastructure and the people that are actually using it, because it's truly very interesting concepts that we're using, like connecting hashes and sharing it between various network nodes. It's fascinating work, but it's almost overwhelming when you're first coming into the industry. So figuring out how we can dumb it down to a user's level of understanding and making sure that they're comfortable with our technology has been a really big goal of ours.
That is a great point. It can't just be the nerds and the cryptographers and people that study computer science able to understand how their electoral process works. You really have to make sure that everyone understands and can kind of verify and contribute to it in the same way, which is incredibly, incredibly important. While we're giving people some time to dig their emails, get those UID codes, and actually vote on their favorite projects, please let us know if you have issues or questions in the YouTube chat. But I would love to talk a little bit about the specific technologies that you guys have all used to build this application. Maddy, do you want to start with maybe the front end of the website? And are you using any web frameworks? Are you using any CSS frameworks? Is it all written by scratch? What is your strategy there?
So we designed the website using JavaScript and HTML and jQuery along with CSS. And in the future, we're hoping to use components such as React in order to make our website more user-friendly and just more appealing to the user. Because when you have good technology, you also have to have a good user interface. So most of the HTML on our website is built using JavaScript, and the confirmation page is built entirely using jQuery. Our goal was just to make the website at least as user-friendly as possible for the users. So it was self-explanatory and they understood what was happening.
It seems very straightforward to use, really nice. You can go and click and learn some details, go find other pages. It's like 4 clicks to actually submit your vote, depending on what type of authentication that you have, which is really awesome. How important is something like web accessibility, if you're super familiar with that, to a project like this where everyone should be able to use it and make sure that everyone has the equal opportunity to vote?
It's extremely important. You want to be able to make your website accessible for anyone, no matter if they have some sort of disability or what, to be able to navigate the website without running into issues.
That is obviously an important part of elections. You need to make sure that everyone has the ability to vote. And so it's great that you're thinking about all of those different things, from colored blindness to if people are using screen readers or whatever else is out there. Those are definitely challenges that are keen when talking about taking what is currently physical options and putting them in a digital format. That is super insightful. What has been your favorite part about working on this website and the other parts of your internship?
I think it's been really interesting just being able to use the skills that I learned in school so far and actually be able to apply it to like a real world application and not just another school project. So that's been really cool. And just seeing things come together as I worked on them was just really rewarding.
That is awesome. Like I said before, I really wish I had an opportunity to do some cool research and internship opportunities like this in my time at college. Whalen, Derek, do you want to talk about kind of the rest of your application stack or what you might be looking into doing in the future in terms of the technology side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, one thing we were looking into at the very beginning was implementing in Rust. And it's still a thought that I've had in the back of my head for quite a while now. But since we've already developed in JavaScript, we're kind of rolling with it until we're very, very confident that we would be able to translate it over to Rust. But some of the infrastructure that we're using includes socket.io. That's the main way that we've been connecting the client and the front end all the way to the server and making sure that the information is handled properly. Various other things, honestly, not that much. We use Express to actually host the website and host all of its related files. But it's pretty bare bones other than the stuff that we import from Hedera.
I think you're using the official Hedera JavaScript SDK as well, which is super nice. And so how important is it for you as an internship program to use common familiar tools to people like Express.js and Socket and standard, HTML and CSS rather than some niche framework that only a subset of people are going to know about?
Oh, it's so important, especially when you talk about the breadth of power that framework like Express has. We're using a very small sliver of its power just to host a static folder, but looking into a lot more, you can look into routing it various different ways and expanding on what our website's already doing, because Express has built such a broad framework already that they just have so many tools that we're able to use.
I'd like to just chime in that from personal painful experience, doing a large project on a deadline while teaching yourself a programming language at the same time is not for the faint of heart, and it will keep you up at night. So much better to use a common platform that people can step in and have some expertise with, and maybe down the line as a special edition or phase 2 or something, you can use a newer, cooler language of the moment, but ultimately you're trying to solve a problem, and if you already have expertise in a language, it's a great place to start.
I appreciate your thoughts, and especially if you have courses that teach JavaScript and teach web development and it's integrated into their existing coursework. I can imagine that finding the funnel and finding applicants to that program is much easier for someone who has to manage it year to year and potentially long into the future after these college students will have moved on to hopefully bigger and better things.
Yeah, that's one of the issues that keep some institutions from using students to write production code, is that students are gone in somewhere between 3 and 7 years. And while mostly they've been taught to do good documentation within the code, it's never the same as having been there and having been in the brain of the person that wrote it. And so I can't count the number of projects that we've had to pick up when the student left and figure out what on earth they were thinking and how we make it work. So yeah, using common tools is a survival tactic.
That is incredibly insightful, something that, unless you're working in the education institutions and universities, most people don't really think about or have to deal with. They wonder, why aren't universities doing X, Y, Z without considering, the actual practical maintenance and how many people it takes to run a program like this. So from your perspective, how has the internship program been? Are you happy with it? Are you looking to expand it? All those types of things.
It's been great. We had, in particular, we had our campus-wide vulnerability scanning project that had kind of run out of steam when a couple of employees left and needed to be resuscitated. And the interns have done a fantastic job in getting that up and running and improving it and finding some tweaks in the libraries and the available scripts to make it work even better than it was before. I think across all the teams, there's been great work, obvious learning and growing as team workers. We have actually hired one of the interns who graduated into our program. She's now working in our identity and access management group as a programmer. And so I couldn't be happier with where it's gone so far. With everyone else, the state budget situation is a challenge, and state money is not guaranteed. So we're trying to be creative about, even should the funding be completely pulled at the state level, how do we continue this? Because we need to continue it, both for ourselves and for the students. And we're looking at taking the model and broadening it across all of our IT infrastructure, not just security, because it works so well and people have started relying on it and trusting the individual students to dig into live production security systems, which I wouldn't have predicted a couple of years ago.
That's so cool that it's not just a research endeavor, that you are actually hiring out of your own internship program. And universities have hundreds, if not thousands, of talented software developers that are going to go work at Facebook or Google or some of the biggest companies in the world. And being able to tap into those resources while they're there and on campus and have them contribute to the systems on campus, live production code, like you said. There's no better access to a talent pool than those students that you're teaching, which is super cool. So Whalen, what are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced throughout this process? Or what are some of the also challenges that you see in the future for something like Attica?
Yeah, totally. I think brushed a little bit briefly on it in the past, but garnering the trust of the public with a lot of pilot tests and not trying to rush the integration of Attica is going to be absolutely essential. So a lot of the benefits of using a voting security application like Attica is being able to distribute the transparency. Oh, here's your vote. You can compare it, make sure it was counted. And after the election's over, you can see where you voted and make sure where it was counted. Moving forward, we definitely have a lot of security testing we want to take very seriously. We're in discussion with security clubs at CSU and giving other students opportunities to administer penetration tests and try and infiltrate and break Attica. And we want to, one, transparently participate in this and continue to improve our security, but also take that to bigger levels and work with more security professionals to show that it is very difficult to alter information stored on a distributed ledger, and that it truly is a secure way to log information.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, some of the past problems that we've had, we're recognizing that there is some sort of bias when we are able to see the votes publicly. We initially, when we were first conceptualizing this project, we wanted to make it as open and public as possible. And then, like I said, we started realizing the biases and the issues that are inherent with that kind of system. So discovering what that commit and reveal structure looked like and how we could implement it with the consensus service was a huge step in overcoming that kind of a challenge.
Yeah, great points. There's so many things with voting that most people wouldn't really think about or focus on unless you're specifically looking at that problem and spending a time thinking about the physical attack vectors, the actual digital attack vectors, the psychology behind influencing votes, and all those fun things. You mentioned providing transparency. Is the code base for this open source? What does that look like? Or do you have a plan to open the code?
Yeah, so we're
how does that influence something with elections? I would love if all of our public goods technology was really built on open source technology in some capacity.
Right. Absolutely, and that's something that we're still very much considering. We are striving to be open source because there's no way that you're going to be able to trust the software if you don't know, if you can't look inside of it and understand how it's working. So the goal is to be open source. Currently, we aren't open source because we're working under an internship repository, and we're still trying to make sure that there's no keys that are leaked or anything like that in there. So once we make sure that it's all safe and that we're comfortable with releasing the code, we'll consider releasing it.
That's the end goal. We
Yes.
just want to make, so many people's public keys are left on repositories that go public. And as people working as young security professionals, we want to take that pretty seriously.
I'd like to chime in a little bit on the challenges as well. One of my general philosophies in building my security team, not just the internship, is to recruit from places other than computer science. I have a number of liberal arts majors on my team, and I think that this project is ripe for recruiting a political science person to wrangle the election theory and be maybe part of the front end that's going to interact with some of the county clerks that might participate in an early demo or evaluation on the way toward live use. So I think that's another hurdle. And as with any project, there are many. I can't wait to watch it happen.
That is awesome. I think for people in software and in tech, the internship opportunities on campus and elsewhere are really clear. People always need websites built. People always need mobile applications built. Ways that you can bring in those other areas of expertise, whether it's psychology, political science. In the future, if you wanted to have someone that's doing like, communications and education to help people understand how all of these things work, and ways that you can bring in those real world experiences and help people get truly the hands-on experience that they need to go be successful after they leave Colorado State is just awesome. It shows how valuable an internship program like this really could be, not just for the programmers of us that are out there. So does anyone on your team have any comments or goals for this Attica project? Where would you like to be in 6 months? Where would you like to be in 12 months? Is this something you would consider working on even after leaving this internship program?
I have a couple things to say. We're hoping to, in 6 months, be implemented in CSU's infrastructure and with CSU's identity service provider, demonstrating the transparency and use cases of our application on a state-funded university. We're in discussion with the Government Blockchain Association and the National Cybersecurity Center to build more pilot opportunity tests for board members and demonstrate security applications outside of a university sanctioned event. We're in the discussion of bringing Attica beyond the internship and taking it. I'm not sure what the timeline for bringing it to state governments is, but that definitely is the end goal. Derek,
awesome.
you want to chime in?
Yeah, go ahead. Or if Steven has any thoughts here about the future of this internship program and these kids.
From a CSU staff perspective, I would love to see a CSU internship project take the world by storm and become one of the serious candidates for adoption more broadly in elections. And I know not everybody ends up going into a career that's defined by their pet project as an undergrad. That doesn't always happen, but this is an interesting opportunity. And it matches sort of what I tell a lot of the undergrads as they're coming in. Even when you get out of school in 4 years, maybe 6 years, the thing you end up specializing might not even exist today. So be open to possibilities and be ready to ride the wave.
That is great advice. No, I'm sure no one thought that blockchains and distributed ledgers would be taken off the way that they did, 4 years ago. Obviously, 10 years ago, they didn't exist. If they did, it was in some very, very nascent portions of internet communities. And 15 years ago, they definitely did not exist. So it's crazy, especially when you think about how long it takes for computer science curriculum to evolve. Some of the courses and materials people are teaching now, like I remember my low-level C programming slides were made in the 90s, and they were just still teaching the same material. And so for something as quick moving as the blockchains and distributed ledger space, it's so reassuring to hear that they have the support and the opportunity to research some of these new types of things.
You make me feel a little bit old. I learned C in the 90s.
Oh, geez. I'm sorry for that one. I can't take it back now, though. We're on a live stream.
That's all right. That's all right.
And so we're going to give people about maybe 5-ish more minutes to submit any outstanding votes that they have for their favorite Hedera20 Hackathon project. If you're still, diving into which one you think is the most interesting, please take like 3 more minutes and make sure you get that vote in there. It might hang on the confirmation page, but please look at Kabuto or Dragonglass at that specific topic that we dropped in the chat, and you'll be able to see if there are still votes flowing in there, which is really great. One question that we have for Maddy is, how hard would it be to add the ability for voters to add a comment for the reason that they voted, or additional portions to this application?
As I'm thinking about it, I really don't think it'd be that difficult to add it in. I'm pretty sure we could add it in as something that they submit when they submit their password, or not their password, but their voting ID and name. I'm pretty sure that's another box we could just add onto that whole module.
Cool. That was a question in the chat. It's awesome to hear that it's flexible. It's easy to add things. Any other details that anyone would want if you're administering a different type of election or a different type of voting platform, being able to have that configurability on both the front end and the back end side of things is super nice to have. So someone said that you have great advice, Stephen. Just wanted to make sure you're aware of that you're getting some love in the YouTube chat. And so I wish I had a CISO that was as supportive as you when I was in university. Derek, would you like to share the chart or any other details that you have
Absolutely.
about this election that we've been running in the background of our conversation here?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just pull the votes right now, and I'll get them into a nice little chart that we can look at real quick.
Cool. And I should also have stated, if I hadn't already, that Attica is one of the participants in our Hedera Boost startup program, which is really, really a wonderful program where not only do they get support from their internship program and on-campus resources, they also have marketing support and technical support and a little bit of financial support in terms of HBARs from the Hedera Hashgraph team. And so whether or not they keep building this project, 3 months out, for however long their students there, or indefinitely into the future, they definitely have access to all of the resources and support from the Hedera team through our Boost startup program. Whalen, would you like to comment a little bit about your experiences with Boost while Derek is gathering the election results for us?
Yeah, totally. I think Hedera does something that really needs to be done in the distributed ledger space because there's so much distrust, because there's so much snake oil. It's so important to be active and engaged with the community. And it has been an absolute blessing to have transparent and open communication with the Hedera community and have the support of Hedera. And if we have questions on something super technical, we can reach out and to you or Garrig or any of the other people working at Hedera this is definitely something that we want to incorporate when we start building our project further, and establishing and garnering the respect of the public and the trust of the public is being super engaged with the public and super transparent and supportive of anybody with any interest in the technology that we're building.
That is great to hear. If anyone's interested in learning more about the Hedera Boost program, it's just hedera.com/boost. Attica is one of the many companies that are part of that program, and feel free to apply. We would love to support you, your project, what you're building on Hedera, and maybe even get you on a fun live stream like this. So Derek, let us know when you're ready with these results here.
Yep, I'm all ready. Let me get my
Awesome.
screen shared here.
So the winners of our community vote will be receiving Hedera Hashgraph swag. I don't know the details of that swag, but I'd assume that we will send you a cool Hedera shirt, some stickers, maybe a button. I don't know. We have a Shopify store. You can go look at it and see what's on there, and you might get some random stuff off of it.
Awesome. Well, drum roll, please.
I should have had my soundboard ready.
So close. That's all right. Anyways, in first place with the Hedera20 community vote, we have, with 3 votes, Humankind.
Woohoo! Congratulations, Humankind, for winning the Hedera20 community vote. We can see that the second place winner is Walla Wallet. Congratulations to Jeremy and the Walla Wallet team. They're also members of the Hedera Boost program, which is super fun. And then it seems like we have a 3-way tie for third between the Public Pest Network, Ocean Plastic Collection and Recycling, and 3IEIO. What's super interesting about these results is they are actually pretty consistent with the winners of the Hedera20 Hackathon. So Humankind won 2 different prizes in the Hedera20 Hackathon. Walla Wallet seems like the underdog of the community here, where they actually didn't win any prizes in the Hedera20 Hackathon, but the community seems to really like what they have worked on and what they're building, which is a mobile wallet dedicated to Hedera Hashgraph, which is super, super cool. I believe you can go sign up for beta access to their wallet now, which plans on supporting threshold signatures and all these types of cool things that Hedera can do that aren't supported by some of the other cryptocurrency wallets that are out there. So this is really, really awesome to see. Would you like to maybe speak a little bit, Derek, for our closing here about how these votes are decrypted and processed by you there?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of the topics that I stay up way too late thinking about, honestly, is how we can verify, or we can make sure the audience is counting the votes, or how the facilitators are counting the votes correctly. And that's one of the things that we wanted to really do with this project, is provide that private key that was used to encrypt all of the votes back to the topic. It looks like various things are getting jumbled up in the script right now. So unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to provide it with this election, but the end goal is to be able to provide character for character that private key back to the network. So if you wanted to go in and check that your vote was counted correctly, you can unencrypt the entire vote and unencrypt all of them if you want, and double check for yourself that you can count them.
You gotta love doing live demos of software. You know, there's nothing more fun than testing something out when you have like 50 people watching you on YouTube at the moment, which is super fun. But this has been so great to have all of you on our virtual meetup today. I'm incredibly excited about all of the progress you have made since I met Whalen back in, I think it was like October in Colorado. To see them now with, you know, a real application built on Hedera and all of the progress that they've had throughout their internship program. I'm sure that we will have Attica run a variety of community elections for us throughout, you know, the things that we have going on in the future whether it's another hackathon and we want the community to vote on their favorite project, or if it's even features to see on the Hedera network or starter projects that they want us to build. I think as much as I can drag Whalen and Maddy and Derek's time into it, you're definitely going to keep seeing iterations of the Attica platform, which is really exciting. Stephen, do you have any final comments or closing words of wisdom for us here?
I'd like to thank you for inviting us all, but also just specifically for having me as part of this. It's great to watch the broader community react and get excited about some of these activities. So I look forward to the next time.
That's great. Well, thank you to everyone who watched this live stream and left us questions and participated in our community vote. We will be sending humankind some updated Hedera swag, even though I think they already received some from winning in the Hedera20 Hackathon. I would highly encourage people to go back and watch the closing ceremonies from Hedera20, where we announce all of the winners and you get to hear from Lehman and Zenobia about the top projects that we've had. But thank you everyone who joined us, and I hope to see you on the next Hedera virtual meetup in July. So have a great day.